let's start with you, Naomi. I've got about six or seven questions. So 6 or 7 questions, 30 minutes. Let's be really tight in our answers. Can we promise to be really tight in our answers? Naomi, thank you. Be very tight in our answers. What have you heard today that most excites you, Naomi? What really excites you?
The number of people here and the commitment to working together to achieve some shared common goals. I'm also very excited by the fact we've got to be bold, brave, and not just sit back and let it happen.
Sarah, what about you? What's really excited you about today?
The ministerial commitment to STBs.
Okay. Rupert?
I echo the ministerial commitment, and I think the opportunity. We've got once-in-a-generation opportunity to deal with this decarbonisation issue, and the appetite's here.
Okay. Anybody else? Anything else? Andrew?
I say the local authority, private sector partnerships that are clear within STBs. I haven't seen that before to this scale, which is really exciting today. A huge diversity of people here.
Right. Okay. Andrew, what do you think? What's really excited you here today? From the perspective of Transport East?
Yeah, it's Andrew Wiles, actually. I'm from representing Peninsula Transport. I think what's excited me most is the partnership opportunities, the fact that we've had such a wide range of attendees here today, from the public, the private sector, our government partners as well. We know what the scale of the challenge is. We've heard all day what the scale of the challenge is going to be, and we're going to need everybody working together to make some meaningful inroads into those challenges.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd just like to add to that I think I've made a lot of useful contacts today. A lot of people have come up and asked me about logistics and supply chains and EV charging and clean air. So really useful, I think, to have made a lot of new contacts.
Okay. Okay, well, Andrew, apologies. What scares you about what you heard today?
Well, what scared me initially was doing this final session of the day, whether we'd still have anybody in the room left listening to us. And
we certainly haven't got Mike anymore.
I'm delighted to see so many people still here. Whilst I'm excited, as I said before, by the scale of the challenge, that's perhaps what scares me as well. We've heard from all of our speakers today, from Rachel through Greg and our other partners, just how much work is involved, how far we have still to go. And whilst between us on this table here, we've got a lot of capacity and capability and skills and innovations, we're going to need to work together closer with all of you to deliver or to start to make some meaningful inroads into the challenges that have been presented to us.
Sarah, what about yourself? What scared you about here? Was Glenn, did he scare you? He was pretty scary.
I think it was the phrase, the slow death march of business as usual. Because when so many people are struggling to maintain business as usual, the thought that that's, we've got to do more than that, and how do we do more than that? Do people have not only the resources, but the sort of mental capacity to do more than that? That was definitely made me a little nervous.
Okay. Did it make you nervous, Martin?
No, because I'm always an optimist. And I think the thing that scares me is that we worry about finding the perfect answer, because there isn't a perfect answer. We live in a democracy. Politicians decide. Our role is to provide the best possible advice, to set out the options, and then to work with them to deliver. And I think we sometimes, as a profession, we chase the perfect answer, and there's no point in doing that, because we're not rational in our own choices. We have these models, we have these tools. They're wonderful, and I advocate their use. We've got to apply a little bit of humanity and common sense, and the fact that we do things irrationally sometimes.
Okay. Naomi, you were nodding.
Well, I was agreeing, but I also was reflecting on what scares me is how we can leave this room and not lose the energy that's in it, and just go back to our day jobs, because that's always the risk after something like this.
Rupert, what about yourself?
A little bit similar, actually. I think, the 17-year-olds of today are going to be 50 by the end of my strategy. As cheesy as it sounds, we owe it to them to turn some of the stuff that we've been talking about in reality. And I was talking to someone earlier today who was saying, well, actually, you're sort of talking about it well. You're talking the walk. You now need to walk it and deliver it. And I think it's incumbent on all of us, both government, local authority, private sector, to turn what we've been talking about into a reality, so that those 17-year-olds of today actually have the future that Rachel wants us to get to.
Okay. What about opportunity? Rupert, where do you see the big opportunities from what you've heard today?
Crikey, where do you start? I mean, EV, I mean, that's massive opportunity, massive growth. Think about the skills required to enable us to move to the world in which we've described earlier on. I think that provides a massive opportunity. I think the opportunity to take people with us, to capture the enthusiasm that Naomi just described, I think is an opportunity. Probably an opportunity to work on how you name people, I think, will be my final one.
Ooh.
For the avoidance of doubt, this is Mike, that's Andrew.
James.
I think the real opportunity here is perhaps around not working to 2050, because that is a long way off, and it is tempting just to be complacent that it is nearly 30 years away, but actually bringing things forward. 2030, many of our authorities do have 2030 carbon neutral, net zero, whatever targets, but actually do we need to, is the opportunity really now there to accelerate? Given Glenn's presentation on the, not quite all doom and gloom, but that's really emphasises to me the seriousness of the task, but it is also an opportunity to accelerate.
Okay, Sarah, I'll come to Martin.
I think, and I'm going to say freight, just in case Maggie's timing me.
Say what, freight?
Freight, supply chain, supply systems.
Such an old-fashioned term, Sarah, such an old-fashioned term.
I think what I sort of picked up on, which I think I already knew, but it was sort of drummed home by both Maggie and Claire, was the fact that during the pandemic, when the sort of people stopped moving a lot of the time, the freight continued to do so, the supply chain, logistics, whatever. And, we talk a lot about how we can't depend, it's very commercially driven, we can't have that much of an impact. But I think what that showed us is actually the demand is there, it is consistent. So how do we take the opportunities by knowing that those goods need to be moved around?
Martin.
The thing I take as an opportunity is the other bit that Glenn talked about today, our inherent adaptability and ability to change. We often talk ourselves, we can't do this for 5 years, it will take 10 years to do that. We've shown over time and in reaction to the pandemic, things can change overnight, not necessarily because of choices we make as transport professionals, but because of what's happening in the real world, whether you're a businessman or an individual. So that adaptability to change and the ability to change quickly, let's forget that.
And what's the biggest change that lingers in your mind then, Martin?
The thing that lingers in my mind, I think it's about 15 years ago in the first South East Regional Transport Strategy, in those halcyon days of regional assemblies, I put a policy in about the role of the internet and how it was going to change. And it takes a global pandemic for it to actually realise its potential overnight.
Okay. There's a question here from Mary Claude Hemming at Seeker. She said, I love today. Where is she? Where's Mary? Oh, there you go. I love today. That's what she said. No, she said more. But I also wanted to hear about procurement and workloads and how STBs are working together to manage materials and resource. Idea for another conference. Do you think that was missing, Rupert?
I think managing resource, just from a Transport for the South East perspective, we're pretty small teams. We're incredibly reliant on the expertise that you bring in this room to help us develop our transport strategies and our investment plans and so on and so forth. I suppose, it is important to plug the support the DfT have given us to enable us to resource up. And that, I think, has come at a really, really crucial time. So I suppose in terms of that procurement and resource, for me, we can't do this alone. I can get up here, any of us can get up here and talk a good talk, but we actually need you to help us turn what we're talking about into reality.
Andrew?
Yeah, I think the example from our region there, there's 4 of us in our Transport East team, but in reality, there's 20, 30 people that daily, weekly contribute to the work of Transport East, the officers, the members, and many of whom are here today. And without them, this would just not happen. And as we say, the relationship we have with DfT is also fantastic in terms of the confidence that they've given us through the 3-year funding indications to now recruit more people in permanent contracts. So I think we've worked together with our local partners in DfT to hopefully plot a route going forwards, which is very exciting.
Okay, Andrew, other Andrew, you were going to.
I was going to make a very similar point. I think we work together. The real thing that we can do here is to add value. We add value to our local authority partners in the work that they're doing in terms of bringing it together. And we can add value to DFT and central government in helping them understand the priorities, the regional priorities for their investments, so they get the best value for money.
Okay. What's one key message that you might take back to your local authority colleagues, James?
I think very much about working together. We are here to help them. We're not there to compete or to divert resources away. We are there very much to add value to what they do, to help them with technical assistance, to help them take forward their plans. Because ultimately, our local authorities are the main delivery partner. We can help facilitate that delivery, I say, by providing that expertise. So yeah, basically, I think really we're there to help. To assist and to take things forward and to deliver.
Sarah?
Yeah, I mean, I think we are, foremost, and I think all of us will probably agree on this, we are partnerships. We're made up of our local authority partners, plus others, including sort of LEPs and chambers and people like that. But, it's letting our partners know that we're there to help them. We know how constrained they are, and especially with sort of COVID, cost of living, all that sort of thing, the resources are even sort of scarcer than they were before. So whether it be developing tools that help them plot alternative fuel sites or EV charging points, whether it's helping develop the business cases for the RIS recommendations or the major road network, we're there to really help them. So the message to them is really to make sure they engage with us, they tap into us, and they use that expertise that we have within the teams.
Naomi, do you think your local authorities all get what you're trying to do and how you can help?
I think so. I think the message that I was going to take back to where I am going to take that to is that, and it is recognised, is that transport and land use planning are not separate things, and that to solve this huge challenge of planning for net zero, we've got to bring those two practices much more closely together, and also innovation.
Okay.
There's a huge amount we can do on the innovation side.
Any other points that we want to take back to? Yeah.
I think also that the fact that they're not just tapping into one STB's knowledge and experience, the fact that you've got all 7 of us here, working together today, shows that the local authorities can tap in and find out what's going on. Maybe it's, if we're talking rural transport, they can find out what's going on in Norfolk or in Cornwall or, Cumbria, wherever it may be. We all have similar issues, and it's making sure that by the sort of 7 STBs working together, there isn't that duplication. We are just adding value across England.
Well, building on that, Anonymous says, could be wrong, but it seems like a lot of effort is going into solving things from scratch. Are we learning how to, brackets and not to, do things from abroad? Martin?
I have mixed views about that. I think there's undoubtedly the opportunity to think and observe about what's happened in other locations. But we have to come back to these things realise themselves in place. And we need to keep focus about the people and the place. So I think, yes, by all means, learn or observe what's happening in other parts of the world. But we need to make the system work better ourselves. And I think one of the things about that we did touch on with the Minister was about the fact that the investment that the department is putting is creating capacity and capability about knowledge that's been retained within the system. And we've got to make use of that, because that's the way about actually accelerating things.
So what if you want to introduce an active travel scheme, by all means look at what they're doing in Holland, but don't necessarily believe you can overlay Amsterdam onto Norwich?
Because there's a whole range of factors that we kind of forget: cultural, society, climate, whole range of socio-economic geography. By all means, think about how it's worked, what has been the success factors, but don't try to replicate them here.
Okay, Andrew, you were nodding away there.
Yeah, I mean that's a great example. I mean, with active travel, as our work we've done with Sustrans has showed, there is a unique approach for our region. We've taken some of the learnings from elsewhere, but we've worked with our partners to understand our local political concerns, the funding situation, the population that we're working with and their aspirations, and it's a very unique perspective that we're able to apply at a regional level using the insights and evidence that we've gathered through the conversations we've had locally. And I think that's the power of what we can do as STBs, as by all means learn from elsewhere, but the application in our regions is quite unique.
Okay, Rupert.
That's interesting. I'm just thinking partly on what Mary Claude was saying earlier on. Quite often when we're talking to you about bids and the like, you often talk about your reach back. Well, your reach back is into your global markets. Many of you are working internationally. Well, let's capitalise on that. Let's use that to help us make and develop the best possible strategies.
Well, that leads on to the next thing I was going to talk about, was the key messages for the supply chain. That is a message that you would send back to the supply chain, presumably, Rupert.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's one of a number of messages. I mean, I think that the key for me is, of course, there's a commercial relationship, and of course there are, we might not always agree with each other, but we're all in this for the same game. The people that I talk to in this room, they're not doing it for the money, well, apart from a couple of you maybe, but, you're in there because you believe in the outcomes that you can achieve.
Okay. And Andrew East, what's your message? I'll come to Andrew West in a moment. I'm going to get my head around the names, don't worry. Andrew, what's your message for the supply chain?
I think we've seen instances over the last few years. We've been very clear of the way of working with us in terms of collaborative, genuinely being part of the team, seeing it less as sort of a transactional relationship. You go away and do some work and come back. The successes we've had with the supply chain over the last few years have been where they've been part of a sort of an integrated part of the team, the spirit of partnership within that, and that's what we're consistently putting out through briefs and specifications, and that's been a real success, I think, with some of the work we've done with the supply chain recently.
James, what messages would you send back to the supply chain?
I think engage with us. We will willingly engage with you, so please engage with us as well. I'm risking repeating myself from the previous panel session. Help us to understand the supply chains. It is so key, as Kevin kept making the point. It is so key. We need to fully understand that.
Naomi?
One of the things that DFT has encouraged us to do much more is work with them on influencing the policy outcomes that they're working on a range of areas. And I think that's where the supply chain, who work with local authorities across the country all the time, can really help us. You're capturing what local authorities are doing and what they need to know, and have ideas about how we can do things better. Feed them back to us, because that's where we can then influence the Department for Transport.
Okay. Andrew from the West.
Yeah, no, I would echo that last point. I think it's very important that we can share and work together on that pool of knowledge and understanding, as well as the innovation that you bring to us, because we're all we have a range of similarities across the 7 regions that are represented on here, but we also have our own particular unique characteristics and challenges, and we need to work with you so that we can make sure that whatever we deliver is directly relevant to, as Martin said, the place to which we're referring to at that particular time.
Which, I suppose, Sarah, can vary as well. It can vary within a region.
Completely, yeah. I mean, we go from a combined authority metropolis to a very, very rural sort of coastal area. How do you say what's going to work in Coventry is also going to work in Market Harbour, which is actually pretty close together?
Yeah. How do you say that then? How do you?
Well, this is it. When you start pulling these things together, you have to make the partners aware, make them understand that what you're doing is for the good of the region. Prior to COVID, I think I spent most of my life sitting on a train somewhere, and it was about trying to get people in Lincolnshire excited about a project going on in Herefordshire. Now, as I say, you might not be getting the infrastructure, but you should get some of the knowledge, you should get some of the benefits across. And trust me, nothing's pleased me more than sitting in a meeting when Lincolnshire and Herefordshire have actually joined up together to sort of almost argue against some of the urban areas. And I think that's what it's about. It's that collaboration and bringing those areas together that wouldn't normally think about things together.
Andrew?
Yeah, I'm following on from that point. I think we have a large evidence base that we're building up here between us, and we can apply that evidence base across this range of different place and characteristics and challenges, and we need to use that evidence base to demonstrate to all our partners, whether it's a local authority partner, a city metropolis or a remote village, the benefits that the particular interventions are going to bring to them.
Okay. I'll start with Andrew. You've just come out of a meeting with the Minister. What's your key messages for government?
I think it's carry on with this journey that we've started together, because it's really bearing fruit. From our perspective, over the last couple of years, we've come from a point of basically no STB to now one where government have helped fund a transport strategy which sets out the outcomes for our region, and now all of our STBs have those strategies. And now moving on to the next stage, working with DfT, local authorities and partners to deliver those strategies. And there's things that all of us have to do at every level. So obviously local authorities have responsibilities. We provide a space for some of those really crunchy strategic issues to be discussed that may not be able to be discussed at a local or national level. And then at a national level, DfT have a key role in unlocking some of the issues that maybe local transport authorities face around things such as silo funding, for example. So there are responsibilities at every level, but I think carry this journey with us, because the evidence base, the analysis, the strategies we have set out that roadmap for the future that we're all now signed up to.
Martin?
I think it was really powerful to hear the Minister this afternoon talk about how government is looking to expand and build upon the investment that's been made in STBs. And I think that's really important, because as we start to look at some of those other factors that influence travel choice, travel demand, we can be that source of trusted knowledge, that one sensor, one source of baseline information on which we can build, that can allow the rich debate that actually then leads to good, effective decision making.
So, I mean, you may not want to share any of the detail of the discussion, but how was the discussion with the meeting today, with the Minister today, in terms of, what was the feeling you came out of it with?
I think everybody felt really energised and see it as a huge opportunity. And I think there's a commitment from everybody to work in partnerships, both as 7 STBs, but also as the STBs with our partners, who include the department and indeed other parts of the government. Partners work nationally, partners working locally. We're all in this together.
Naomi?
I think, bearing in mind he's not actually the Minister for Southern National Transport Bodies, I think it's very clear how all ministers in the department understand the role that STBs play, and that's a really positive thing. He didn't come here with a message that's part of his portfolio. He came here to show what all ministers are looking for. For me, the thing that I hope we've gained from the conversation is the need for flexibility for funding. Funding is tight, of course, so help us, help you, DfT, make the most of your funding by making it as flexible as possible.
Okay, Rupert?
I think the message about the department using us at an earlier stage to help some of the policy thinking is something we landed. And the other aspect for me is the way in which our STBs are constituted. You're bringing together local politicians from the region, and that's an incredibly powerful thing to do, and an incredibly powerful voice. And for ministers, the whole aspect of an STB is that ability to speak with a single voice on those issues that are affecting the region is something not to be underestimated, and it can be helpful if there are difficult things that potentially need landing.
Okay. Final point is, I suppose, a bit of future gazing. Imagine you're standing on the stage in 2030 and everything's gone to plan. What are you going to be most proud of achieving since this inaugural conference? Sarah?
I was talking about this with a colleague earlier, and he suggested a quote from Henry Ford, which is over 100 years old now, which says, so if I'm standing in 2030 looking back and I'm saying, look, in 2022, all 7 of us came together. This was the first time that all 7 STBs have been at an event together, focusing sort of on the STBs. And the quote is, coming together is a beginning, staying together is progress, and working together is true success. And I think that's what, if I was here in 8 years' time, I'd like to think that we've created true success and we're still here all working together.
James?
I'm not sure I can add much more to that. I think that sums it up extremely nicely. Just to choose one specific one, though, I think in 10 years' time, if we could say that we've actually achieved a modal shift in freight supply chains to rail and to coastal shipping, then I think we would really have achieved something.
Okay. Naomi?
I would like to have got my whole journey here from first last mile in a sustainable transport, including hopping on East West Rail.
Okay. Andrew? Andrew,
I think if we were here again at that time, I think the very fact that we were here would indicate that we have been successful, we have added the value, we have delivered those successful partnerships, because we need continued support from DFT and other government departments to be here. And if we are here, then we have clearly delivered against those promises.
Okay. Other Andrew.
I'd like to see a next generation by 2030 coming through where sustainable travel opportunities are available to all of them. I think we talked earlier on about the need for supplying for youth. The survey that Essex did, where they asked 20,000 young people, what are you most worried about? And they said jobs. In 10 years' time, I don't want access to jobs to be something that is a worry that comes through that survey. So helping the next generation for sustainable transport to be the first option.
Okay. Rupert.
I think I'd like to be able to come here and give you a case study, an example of a community that has benefited from all the stuff that we're talking about, that's got the access to education, that is skilling up, that's seeing sustainable growth in jobs and so on and so forth.
Okay, Martin, round us out.
So as I look back from 2030, Anthony, I never saw that 2024 general election result coming. I never saw that coming. But I was really relieved and pleased to see that the Rainbow Coalition government accepted the advice and used the evidence from the STBs to do that transformational change in the way we pay for and invest in transport. Who would have thought we get pay-as-you-go across every single form of transport, and actually the form that meant. But it was helped by the fact that they also accepted, the Treasury, that we said we should have carbon budgets alongside the financial budgets. And the acceptance of that in 2025 was also a milestone. And of course, right here, right now in 2030, looking back, I'm on the second 5-year submission of a regional infrastructure board that brings together not just transport, but energy systems, digital connectivity to deliver infrastructure for people, places, and delivering services and opportunities.
And all that was in one dream. Martin, panel, thank you very much indeed. I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you very much.